people the sense of what it feels like to be in a workshop environment. Because while I enjoy very much doing these calls too much, you know, especially since my kids are not allowed in the room while I'm doing those calls. So that's an added bonus with the homeschoolers. Oof, I forgot where this sentence started. Anyways, I want everybody to at least say hi and get a sense of I now remember what it is to be in the workshop, because this is also a way for me to open my class. That's my signature series for academic writers. My group, I think everybody here are on the group, Academic Writers Unblock. If you're not, please join the group. And let me see if I need to mute somebody because I hear some background noise. Hang on, there's the chat.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. If you can't do the video right now, that's okay. All right, so my name is Dr. Sharon Chachaf. I just go by Sharon, and if you're American and all you can do is Sharon, I'll go with Sharon as well. I've lived in the United States since 2004. I get to vote in this country for the first time November 3rd. I know, right? I don't know yet what to do. No, I know. So I'm going to try to save civilization. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and try to do in Georgia, which we might flip. So here we go. And I see that Yael Harlap is joining us. Yael took my last. Hi, Yael. I'm just telling them that I'm excited you're joining, because Yael could give you a little bit of insight to what it feels like to be on one of my workshops, because she was in the inaugural online workshop. So I was just introducing myself. So again, Sharon, my background academically, I got my BA and MA in Tel Aviv University. It's so funny that Professor Alina Bernstein from Tel Aviv University, from the film department, where I got some of my first exposure to film studies, jumped on this call. I feel like I need to mute someone. There you go, got it. So I got my BA and MA in comparative literature and communication. Running in between these two buildings kind of felt like the story of my life, because in comparative literature, everybody understood why I wanted to do post-colonial theory, and in communication, everybody understood why I wanted to study television, but the communication people didn't understand, you know, humanity, feminists and post-colonial and queer theory, and, you know, the people in literature were very sad that somebody that can actually write about poetry wants to, you know, debase herself in television. I took all of these, the three-ring circus, to Texas, where everybody in the radio, television, film department understood why I wanted to do what I wanted to do all at the same time. By the way, Alina was not in those departments. She was in the film and media department, and this is where I would run to take some classes where people would understand. Got my PhD in 2009, and I, you know, started a job, a tenure track job with a newborn. So that was a very humbling experience, and one that got me to, let's say, know very intimately what it feels like to deal with an academic writer's block. Because everything I knew how to do to finish a writing project, I knew how to do childless and happy and free. I could just, you know, write, procrastinate, wait for the deadline, and start then, and write all night, and, you know, not wash the dishes and let it pile, and, you know, maybe my cats would be upset, and maybe my boyfriend, after that, you know, now husband, would be a little upset that he has to do more dishes. But back at the time, who could care less? And I could just, you know, flow based on the deadline is here, the deadline is here. All of that became completely irrelevant when I was finishing my dissertation with a newborn, and then continued to, you know, my tenure track career with a 2-year-old and another newborn, to which my colleagues said, "Oh no," when I said I was pregnant again. You can see how the environment I was in was, how shall I put it, less than supportive of having to navigate, you know, life circumstances that are changing. And, you know, the more things piled up and the more I was working on a body of work that got me an international reputation that I still enjoy. Just this week, I had to tell somebody, no, I'm not giving you an article on Israeli television. And plus, your collection has holes, and let me just for free give you some review for why the collection is not that great. But it was just not adding up. And it was really stressful. And I just ended up with this feeling that I know so many academic writers share, which is the imposter syndrome, the anxiety, avoiding my writing altogether. And then, finding that something that I love doing so much, which is writing research and researching, just became a kind of like a cloud over my head, and this, feeling of constant inadequacy and shame. And you guys know that vicious cycle. With that in mind, and also since, hang on, let me see if, oh yeah, I'm reading the chat. I'm not very good at reading the chat while following my flow, but I want to make sure that, oh, there you go. Okay, so I see that some of you are already sharing, so I'll take some time in a minute to go through. All right, so then I see you're identifying. So with that in mind, and given that I was also developing a writing curriculum, both for my graduate students, so I had PhD students. I was teaching a grad seminar each semester. I had 6 PhD advisees. I lost count of how many MA students, and so many undergrads, right? And I was developing the curriculum of critical thinking through theory for my entire program. In the film and media department in Georgia State University. So with all of that, I became at first equally obsessed, and now I would say more obsessed with my research into, and here I am going to show you these are just the few top, I don't know how many, I would say top 10 books about the writing process. I really became as obsessed about researching what gives. How do we train people? How do I train myself? And how would we train people as writers? And my discovery was quite astonishing. What do you know? There is a whole body of work, very practical, also theoretical, from psychology, from creative, people studying creativity, definitely from writing programs. People have taken the time to research and also share their lived practices on the writing process. And there is a process and there is a practice, and it is my, I can harp on and on, but it is my belief that we are failing students from the very early stages of training academics. We do not train students as writers. My professors were, and again, I'm talking here about, I got cutting edge. I had really good, sweet, supportive professors, but they themselves were bad writers with bad writing habits that they never had the time to really revisit or think of. And so there was no curriculum that could teach me what I call the no nonsense, no drama, just self-supportive, self-compassionate, practical practice. Practical is a word that you will hear a lot from me, because there is a lot of little tiny steps. And Yael can tell you, maybe Yael would want to share later, right? You can do some very simple, you can take simple steps to teach yourself how to develop a writing practice that is regular, but it's not, oh, you have to do this today and this tomorrow. It's a regular but flexible, that adapts to your life circumstances, that is mindful about who you are as a writer, but also what the challenges are of the craft and the style of writing that you are undertaking. And you will hear this from me again and again in my videos. I really do believe, now that I've ventured out of academia to greener pastures, or as green pastures, I write a lot of nonfiction. I'm writing this as a self-help book. Academic writing is the hardest type of writing. It's really hard. If you guys are struggling, it's not because you guys are inadequate or stupid or whatever it is that you tell yourself harshly when you struggle. And I want to say another thing. If you got yourself into MA program or a PhD program, or you finish your PhD and you're in a tenure track job or a teaching job, whatever it is, you are not suddenly this lazy person that does not know how to self-motivate or self-discipline. I can't tell you the number of times I have people coming in on the group and they go, I don't know how to motivate myself. And then I'm talking with them for like, I would text with them even for 2 minutes. And you find out that this is somebody that just had a baby and is taking care of elderly parents and they go, I don't know, I'm not motivated. Really? Do you need, more than just listening to yourself? You're not motivated. You're just burnt out, right? So we have a very unforgiving environment for being human beings. Yet all of us, last I checked, are human beings. And we are going to respond in certain ways to certain set of pressures. But there is this really widely shared sickness, I would say, malaise, I don't know how to say that word, right? Just that the academic environment, I really think, fosters of us, just turning very harshly on ourselves to just believe that if we are struggling, the only possible intervention is to be even harsher on ourselves, meaner to ourselves, horrible to ourselves. And I'm giving you a little bit of, the tricks that work really quickly when I start working with clients. I listen to what they have to say about their writing. And I tell them, if you had a 7-year-old and this kid would come back from school and would be struggling with their homework, would you turn around to the child and say, you never concentrate, you're a piece of shit, you're so lazy, right? I can go on, right? All of you are like, never. But this is exactly what we do to ourselves when we, speak to ourselves about our failures in writing. So this may seem a really simple thing to do, but what we do in the class, when you take this time it's going to be a 10-week series. This was part of the feedback I got from your group, you and the group that you were taking it with. But I thought, oh my God, after 6 weeks, you guys are dead. And you said, no, we would like for it to be longer, maybe shorter lessons on a longer time period. So this is one of the big changes they introduced to the syllabus. What we do is we put this into practice. We have a combination of content, where it's PowerPoints, where I am giving you, the good stuff from all of these books through a curriculum that I will hopefully, after I would want you guys to introduce yourself a little bit, I will go into how I structure the curriculum. But we definitely start with the emotional, cognitive, psychological complexes that everybody brings to their writing. Because remember when I told you about talking to a 7-year-old in that way? The part of you that writes is a very young part, because the pile of literature that comes from psychology talks about the creative self as a very young part of ourselves. So when you parent that inner child in such harsh ways, that child does not want to come out and play with you at all. And I know that academic writing can sometimes feel like it's not a creative pursuit, but that's when you're already, up shit creek with no paddle. It is a creative pursuit. And when you are trying to force the child, be mean to the child, deprive it from having fun, right? All of this thing. And when you've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, don't forget that we started writing academically in first grade. So our habits that we bring to our desk as grown-ass people working on an academic, on a dissertation, or it's our career already, these are old habits. And very few of us stop to, reassess whether or not the way we approach that child is useful or makes sense. All right, so at this point, I'll stop my flow, and I see there's a lot. I cannot possibly go over all of those comments, but let me see. Somebody's saying I have a 4-year-old, and okay, yeah, I can just get that. Off camera, that's fine. Doctoral students stuck at the proposal writing stage. Ooh, I'm so good with helping people with writing proposals. So who was that, Felicia? You're still here, right? But I don't see. I can ask you to unmute. Okay, so Yeah, doctoral chapter. Another doctoral student, Justin, is stuck on a chapter that has way too much going on. It's classical. Been there, done that, and have helped so many people with that. Right? Is it chapter 2 that never ends? That's like actually chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5? Or is it mine? It was, for me, it was chapter 4. I was also this pregnant when I finished my dissertation, and my baby's nickname when she was still inside was chapter 4. So we called her, because the reality of it was, even when I was so ready to give birth, my doula had to come to my house. Yael heard that story, I think, and make me put not just all my dissertation materials, but also my laptop in a box, because she said, this baby is not coming because she understands you're too worried about chapter 4. So when we put it all away that same day, I went into labor. So there you go. That's the power of self-suggestion. Okay, so let me see what else popped up in the chat. Swapnil, I really appreciate that you jumped on today. Tenured associate professor, Joy, with loads of completed project and too few publications. So definitely something that I really love to talk about is how the Yael is nodding, because that was your situation when you joined the class, right? And how many publications since you joined the class, Yael? I'm so proud of you.
2 submissions.
Woohoo! All right, and it's not, the truth of the matter is you had the materials and you weren't, right? So bringing people, so I'm jumping ahead, but like the last part of the class, I call it finishing school, how to get a draft from A to Z. And I dangle it kind of towards the end, because that's what you think you want to learn. But before you can learn how to, before we get to the place where we're like, all right, let's get you published and finished, right? You have to go through parenting that inner child and some other steps that I will talk about in a minute. All right, so Felicia said, great analogy, you can relate to that. So I'm assuming it was either the inner child or the baby is chapter 4. Who knows, right, at this point. All right, so, okay, so can you guys, I know that people don't want to be on the, and this is recorded. Hang on, let me make sure I'm recording it. Yes, this time I'm recording it, and I will put it on the group. So within the confines of Academic Writers Unblocked, I'm not going to put it somewhere else, but on that group it's going to appear. So, be mindful, if you want to discuss all the shortcomings of your department chair, maybe that's not the right place to do that. But yeah, hi Miriam, it's good to see you. And baby, hi baby. So would you mind introducing yourself, guys? Should I put somebody on the spot? I will. All right, Alina, say a couple of words, where you're in the world, what you're working on, what's going on, and if there's like a big...
Okay, I will. Sharon, I can pronounce your name.
Yes, you can.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Alina Bernstein. I'm in Israel and in the College of Management. That's one place, and the Tel Aviv University, the Film and Television Department, because in Israel you cannot support yourself with just one job, one place. I'm a senior lecturer, and I have quite a few publications, but still, me too. I get sometimes stuck, and I sometimes feel that I'm not doing enough. And particularly now, I have something, it's a little project outside of my area of expertise. It's somehow evolved from a conference and a meeting and talking to colleagues. And I thought it was something really nice and easy to do. And we started working on it. And it was submitted, it was rejected. The comments were very harsh, but it's an American colleague and myself. She's even more senior than me, and still it happens. And for now, we said, okay, let us put this one to lie and we'll see what goes on, because I'm working on 2 other projects and I'm teaching a lot. In Israel, you have to teach a lot. So I'm stuck. And when you said that you were doing this, I thought, okay, you're never old enough to learn. So here I am.
Never, never, never. This is wonderful, Alina. Thank you so much for sharing, because I think this is so important. I often tell my students, you know, one of my claims to glory as an academic, as a scholar, was as an editor. I even won the Society for Cinema and Media Studies Best Edited Collection Award for a co-edited collection that I put together on television formats. And what I've learned, and I was a serial editor of special issues, special journal issues. And the main incredible thing, you know, when you work, I always love to bring, you know, really emerging voices. So, you know, people from you know, getting their PhDs all the way up to, and my Israeli chutzpah allowed me to bring like the dinosaur of my field, right? So those of you who are in my area, Alina, you know that I'm bringing together, you know, I'm not going to name names, but like really the masters of the field, the people whose published work define the field, which is global television studies, with newcomers. And I want to tell you, when you look behind the scene at how the sausage is made, the people about to retire from an Ivy League university are worse sometimes in their stuckness and their bad habits and their procrastination and their, you know, the bullshit they pull with younger, especially younger female, you know, like, I'm not going to get into like, you don't pull that shit with me though. I'm just going to say that, but they learn quickly, you know, to the point that one of them said, why don't you put in my, why don't you write my literature review? You're the expert on the topic. I'm like, I can think of several reasons, but anyways, my point here is, if you project onto the successful people in the field, and Alina is highly successful published person in our field, okay? So I love, Alina, that you shared how this never ends, right? Part of the reason that this never, well, a couple of things. First of all, if we don't have good habits to begin with, we will reach a moment in life when things are not adding up and more is piling up on your plate. And, you know, life is a spiral. You know, sometimes you're here and sometimes you're there, and you go back around to old wounds. You get re-triggered by old trauma. Like, you never know when something is going to come up that's going to trigger you, that's going to, can lead to an out of control writer's block. So that's one thing. So, you know, those things, they don't go away. But another thing is, you know, we keep challenging ourselves not to get bored a lot of the time. So, Alina, I'm thinking, you know, oh, you thought this one was going to be nice because probably it was interesting for you because there was a nugget there that was new and more challenging. And a lot of the time, these are the moments of transition, or moments when we took on challenge. You know, I shared the story about becoming a mom, right? Getting the job, but then started, it was like coming out of grad school, it was like I was ahead of the pack. And it was like, because I had the baby, it was like, oh, to the back of the line with you. Suddenly, everything that I had established for myself so that I will know how to do what I need to do in a really well-received way was just not relevant because I wasn't sleeping and I was somebody's milk, you know? So this is an extreme case, but there are less extreme situations where what you had going either, you know, just stopped working because your life became more hectic. I mean, the elephant in the room right now is a sick president. So many ways he's sick. But anyways, all right, we are in COVID times. All right, so I just want to tell everybody right here, if you know, all you need to expect of yourself is maybe to be at 40% of what you were able to do before, because all of us are struggling with, you know, if you don't, it's not, obviously if you're a parent with the kids at home and you have to just figure out how to do this without the support of childcare or school, I'm in that boat. I'm here, you know. So this class would have happened earlier if it wasn't for, now I'm taking 6th grade and 4th grade as well as doing and building a business from scratch and writing 3 projects. So I hear you. But I gotta say, if you don't have children and you're isolated, that can really, you know, we parents can project onto you that you got it good right now because, you know, you don't have the kids to take care of. But being in isolation can bring up, a lot of triggers. So it's not going to just be your stereotypical struggling academic. I am telling you, I've worked with people from all walks of academia, and they were as stuck and harder to unstuck to get unstuck, right? So really my favorite case, I'm not going to name name, but really a person about to retire from MIT that hasn't published anything in 30 years. And I watched, he came to give a talk at university here. There's a lot, I was at Georgia State, but we have Emory and UGA. But anyways, he came to give a talk, and he gave this wonderful talk. And I came to him and I said, I need this to be a part of the special issue I'm editing. This was back in 2000, God knows, like the special issue came out last year. So maybe 4 years earlier. And he was like, no, I don't know, I didn't say. My proudest achievement is getting this guy unstuck. And this is a person that is read in every introduction to television studies syllabus everywhere in the world. And he was not publishing for 30 years. He published some poetry and other things, but not academic writing. And working with him showed me, and at the same time I was working with 25 undergraduates, just learning, and I was developing this curriculum, basically the curriculum that I now teach in my private business. And it showed me how he was suffering from very similar problems in his writing as my incoming freshman composition. So I was like, okay, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. If this can help him as much as it can help them, I think we have a gap. All right, another thing I wanted to say that Alina said, and this is very much on purpose, the format of this, and Yael can testify, I like to kind of go back and forth from what you guys are saying. So Alina mentioned the life cycle of an academic paper, including getting horrible, harsh, terrible, awful reviews. And I wish, I don't want to get into that because this could be an hour rant, but I mean, honestly, people are doing reviews as unpaid labor. They're doing it for a line in their CV. They usually wait for the last moment. Like, you can't take this personal, although it can be very personal. Some people are, horribly personal about it and are trying to be, the gatekeepers for innovation. That's another thing. People tend to have a hard time accepting work that goes against the grain, that's innovative, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into how horrible and dysfunctional and traumatizing and wounding this process can be. Not every time, but reviewer number 2. And I gotta tell you, if you're already, remember I told you we are bad parents to our own inner child who's our writer, because our writer is a very young part of us. If you are already mean to yourself and somebody else comes in and they're mean to you, it's like it's a fest, like it's a, let's all just bash you because you're like, oh, there you go, now I have proof. I built a body of work, again, Alina knows some of my work because you're in my field, and I will not tell you, like, some of the publications that I'm most proud of, the insults that were hurled at me. Oh, her English makes me anal. Well, I'm pretty sure you were anal before. If, the English of a not, second, right? I think there's agreement. Just, horribly personal. I was, the collection that won the award got one review that was so horrible the publisher almost dropped us, and that review blamed us for only bringing American voices and called us Yankees. I'm like, I'm Israeli. I'm like, Yankee. And it was just not factually true, but I'm just trying to make a wider point here, which is something that I go into in great detail in the beginning of my class. Unfortunately, and hopefully when you take this class, it stops with you, academics tend to be assholes. They tend to create a really shitty environment for their colleagues, sometimes even their advisees, which is really unfortunate. And that environment that we created in academia around writing is the worst, most triggering environment for all of your inner doubts. Instead of having an environment that tries to, well, and again, of course, you know, I was a professor. I had undergraduates through PhD students. I tried to do different things. I'm not going to say every professor I had did that. And sometimes it's unconscious that, you know, professors do that. One thing I go into in those earlier weeks in the class is this, like the sibling rivalry, you know, situation. English. So you go into a class and the professor, well-intended maybe, because they believe that competition would be the only way to get, you know, to get the best out of you. They're kind of fostering this competition. Now, I remember going into a program. I was doing Israeli television. Somebody else was doing Bollywood, right? Another person was doing French cinema, whatever. Why are we competing? What are we competing on? We're not going to work on the same, you know, with the same advisor. We're not going to publish in the same venues. We really are not. There is enough funding. This was UT. Why foster our competitiveness as the only way conceivable of motivating us? So what I do, the work I do, when you guys get to me, you're already, you know, you've already experienced the limitations of that. You know, if you could just discipline yourself more, you would already be successful. But self-discipline is a very limited tool. You're already as disciplined as you can be. You know, you didn't get to this point, and I see that the group here are, you know, I think everybody has their PhD or are working towards their PhD. So, you know, you got yourself into a PhD program. There's nothing you can say that would convince me that you don't know how to manage your time and you don't know how to get, you know, your research done, or you're not passionate about a contribution that you have that you want to share with the world. So the idea then that if you're struggling with the writing, the only possible explanation is that you're lazy, no good, all of those stories. For me, that stopped working. And when it stopped working for me, there was no time at that point in time to, you know, reintegrate and find, like, research and find a different way of approaching. I actually did that. And spoiler alert, I was denied tenure. So at some point in my tenure career, I decided very consciously that it's not worth it to leave, you know, in a very toxic, stressed environment and foreground accomplishing all the things. And, you know, it was like one of those, oh, you got a book, but we need to do a new book. Oh, you got a new book under contract, but it needs to be out. Oh, it's out, but we need it to be reviewed kind of environment, right? You all know that. So for me, it wasn't adding up, and the calculus shifted to, I'm not going to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm very happy and free. I mean, I wish I had left before. I mean, I needed the health insurance, but honestly, like, my one regret is that I didn't leave 2 years earlier, and my business would be 2 years ahead. But I don't believe there are mistakes. I believe in trial and error. You know, we are making the mistakes we need to teach ourselves what we need to learn in life. And so I was really encouraged and pushed by this experience to find, distill, and then be able to share a different way to approach academic writing. You need to well, I don't want to sound so normative. It helps. Not you need. It really helps to take time away from trying to do the thing to being mindful about what the process is that can get you through. So I discovered, again, with books like, so I'm going to start showing the books. And I know I said I do want to hear more from everybody, but I know that you guys also want to get the good stuff. So here's one that's called A Writer's Guide to Persistence. We did a lot of exercises from that Yale Write in our last class. I think that's the one with the bubbles. And all right. So, and this fantastic book is called The Right to Write from Julia Cameron. That's one that really saved my life. I think this was the first one that I ever it kind of found me. I might have to tell a 6-year-old to be more quiet. Okay, so and then look at this one, Around the Writer's Block. I always like showing this one because it's so fantastic. It has all of my old writing traits on it. Using brain science to solve writers' resistance, including, all right, writer's block, procrastination, paralysis, perfectionism, postponing, distractions, self-sabotage, excessive criticism, overscheduling, and endlessly delaying your writing. I'm like, that was my calling card. All right, so this is just one of many. So by reading and getting obsessed with the literature on the writing process, on what writer's block is, and of course, everything to do with craft and style. So now I wanna make another comment here. You might notice that very few of the books, I think maybe these two that I have, are actually written for academic writers, with academic writers in mind. This Zerubbabel, which I recommend with a caveat, we can talk about it, the Clockwork Muse, which is really very geared, it has a lot of useful advice on how to understand and schedule a writing project and getting yourself through a writing project. It's this person is very much about and Avital. Alina, do you know Avital? He actually he's an Israeli. He's in Rutgers, very famous sociologist. He wrote fantastic books. He wrote a book about the week and the year. He's a sociologist of time, really fantastic. He's with Dafna Lemish at Rutgers. So he took some time to talk with me. He doesn't believe that there is such a thing as a writer's block. And that's a very common thing in academic consultants, in consultancy and coaching for academic writers. It's like, oh, it doesn't even exist. Just, discipline yourself. If you just organize your timetable and you sit there and make yourself write, then there shouldn't be a problem. And I was like, we had a really interesting exchange where at the end he was like, maybe you are onto something. Like there is such thing as, so for example, I would bring this book that's not for academic writers, On Writer's Block by Victoria Nelson. And this person is a therapist and a PhD, in psychology, a new approach to creativity. If you are stuck, if you're like really stuck, if you're stuck in deep, long-held trauma and emotional wounds, that's the baby for you. It's such a fantastic book. But again, in my class, of course, you'll have a PDF excerpt of the best part of it. That's the most useful. I bring together this literature on academic writing with the literature that academic writers just don't know about. And this is what my book project is also going to do, is to bring these things together. Let me see if I lost some, okay. I wanted to see if there were questions in the chat. All right, another academic book that I kind of like, but with a caveat, this one is about style, the elements of academic style. It's pretty good. Again, it gets really theoretical and confusing. I like to borrow from it. But for example, when I teach this book on style that's academic, I also use this really fantastic book that's called Writing for Story by the Pulitzer women. It's called Craft Secrets of Dramatic Nonfiction by two-time Pulitzer Prize winner. It's John Franklin, John, J-O-N, John. So this is something that an academic writer might not think to buy when they go to a bookstore and they're stuck, right? But this is, a fantastic intervention with fantastic little tricks and hacks to understand structure, to understand how you build tension across a piece of writing so that you keep a reader and yourself interested in a way, right? To think about the different parts. I think it's from this book, Yael, you might remind me because I just, you were in my last class, right? Where he says, the little ditty that's so perfect. Bigger things are built from smaller things, right? Just thinking about structure, thinking about the structure of your work, thinking about how it comes together. We don't really think a lot about this. However, these books don't really understand the formula for research papers. My work brings together, with my experience of editing and working with so many academic writers, the understanding of our world as academics, the environment in which we function, and these hacks and tricks and, knowledge from people who are writing narrative. I want to just quickly say this. Academic writing is hard because, and you might have seen it in some of my videos, because it is not just, it brings together storytelling because you do want to tell a story, and reporting. So if somebody is a reporter, they need to do some research, but not as rigorous and original as the research you have to do. And then they need to do some storytelling, but you know, the deadline is quick and it's like a short little, that they can do one scene and then quickly just give facts. We need to do storytelling. We need to do original research that we design. We need to report on data, which is dry and boring. We need to bring together the literature, right, that we were entering into a conversation. What am I missing? There's argumentation. So academic writing is, it just brings together so many different modes of writing. And therefore, it's hard. So if you take nothing else from this conversation right here, if you are struggling when you are writing academically, you are not stupid. You do not lack in motivation or discipline. You are just having a hard time doing something that's difficult. Usually because when you started doing this thing that was difficult, your circumstances were more carefree, maybe, and you got to, you know, and then it becomes your life. And when it's life, life continues and you have a lot going on. All right, so Verna has to go. I think I have to run, but I wanted to quickly say I'm academic adjunct, terribly afraid of criticism and looking for a community. Oh, and I'm a German studied. This is a really important comment, actually, Verna, and I don't know if you're still here. Maybe just say hi if you can in video. Yeah, this fear of criticism, and as I said before, hi, Verna. Do you want to say hi real quick? And we already are working together, so this is fantastic.
Yeah, hi. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry for my face. I just came back from a workout, but
beautiful face.
So anyhow, yes, I have to run again, but yeah, I'm mostly looking for a community because I tend to isolate myself. I have noticed that this does not good things to me. I do feed off energy of others, so that's why I'm looking for community. And yeah, long story short, I'm working with my advisor again through several coincidences, and you know, back in the day, she was the most supportive advisor ever, and all of a sudden she is super critical. I do not know what to make of it, and I try to separate my personal feelings from all of it. It's hard, and so, you know, so that's why. Plus, you know, I left academia, so I also have internalized this, I'm not good enough, otherwise I would have gotten a tenure track job, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, so wow. I know in my head that all of this is wrong, but I do think I need a community to, you know, push me up a little bit.
I have a lot, obviously, as you guys can see, I have a lot to say for every academic writing whoa, but listen, when you leave, right, when you leave the environment, even if you are in a tenure track job, but you left graduate school, I think it's really important to name what the attending challenges of what happens when you are, I mean, even if you had the worst time in graduate school or you had the best time, you still, I mean, this is why I really like taking classes myself and teaching classes, because you kind of veer off and you're on your own. Even if you are, you know, I thought, oh, there's going to be all these colleagues and other professors, and I'm going to be a part of a scholarly community. I gotta tell you, everybody's busy, everybody's running. Like, listen to what Alina said, right? She's teaching in 100 places. Her best intentions on her best day, you know, there's just so much to give to graduate students and your colleagues. And, you know, I had a very hard time finding that support when I was, you know, finding even the one person that would interact and would, and, you know, and I got a lot of bad advice, you know, where people don't engage you and they just go like, just go do it. I have a whole video that for some reason is the most popular video I've ever done, which is the bad advice academic writers get, because that probably resonated with a lot of people because it's lazy advice, right? Yeah. I had a colleague who just looked at my writing and said, well, there's a lot of adverbs. Okay, you know, there was just, and this person didn't publish for 20 years themselves, you know what I mean? So part of the problem is the imposter syndrome that everybody suffers from. So how can you be a generous person helping somebody else with their writing when you yourself are struggling with that same thing. So we have a
Yeah.
vicious cycle that happens. So that's, you know, that's one thing. But yeah, the imposter syndrome, oh my God, this is why we also, if we don't read it in class, I also recommend reading things like Brené Brown's work on shame. And here's another really good example for somebody who's highly research academic. You know, she is a professor at University of Texas, but she's writing in different kind of more popular ways that made her a superstar, right? Because when we are in what she calls a shame storm, right? You might be going into a class, and again, I know now you're like on your own, but I'm talking about even when, you know, you go and you're asking that advisor for help, and she's feeling like, you know, I'll tell you a quick story. One of my first clients ever after I left academia was in this really prestigious postdoc program. And one of the things that they would bring was she got to choose a person that she would want, like from the top of the field, and they paid that person a ton of money to come to Ivy League school, I'm not gonna name, right? And work with her. And what she got out of that experience almost made her leave academia, because they brought somebody that she admired to read her work, and that person was a shitty feedback giver. It was so horrible to her, harsh, critical. There was no, and so then I read through her work and what the review was that she got from this person that was paid handsomely and was then able to put that idea, right? And what I saw was that this person did not engage the work to try to see what the work is. She just didn't, it's lazy, right? Instead of, because that project, like this was based on somebody's PhD that was won awards. It was brimming with potential. But the person was not engaging to see what the potential was. It's a lot easier if you she probably took an hour to read it quickly on the plane over. So it's a lot easier to just like poke holes in things and say critical things. And I don't think she meant anything by that. But our postdoc, you know, student was just devastated. She really believed that that meant she had no place taking that dissertation project that was important and well-researched and a great contribution and really cutting edge. And she was about to leave academia when she hired me. And just holding her hand through reading those reviews and finding a very little that was in there that could actually be useful, shifted the tide. Her book is now under contract with a really good university press. Just a fun story.
Okay, I'll leave with that. Thank you, everyone.
I know you need to go. So yeah, and you know, you and I are still talking later next week. So, all right, other questions or comments or anybody wants to jump, especially if somebody knows that they need to leave and they want to ask a question or just introduce themselves.
I think I have like a few minutes before she starts getting fussy again. She's teething and we have like 6 teeth coming out at once.
We are supportive of the teethers in the room. Absolutely.
But the unnecessary criticism takes away from our opportunity to get actual feedback. Like if we're on the right road to, you know, making a point, or if we have to try again, or if we need to, you know, veer into a different direction. I had feedback where it was like, there's thousands of words in the thesaurus, use a different one. And I'm like, okay, like you could have just put a simple comment like, this is an overused word, find something different. I want the feedback on whether or not I have a good point, and if whether or not I'm writing the academic information that needs to be, or that in the correct way. For example, like my background's engineering, so we absolutely don't do any writing. We do a lot of numbers, right? So I know.
Hey baby, that's absolutely correct. I had by the way, just as she's crying, she or he? So you know, I had a really fun experience because I'm in Atlanta, so I got to do one of these workshops at CDC. So it was all physicians and public health, you know, officials, and you know, dealing with a lot, as you guys know. This was before COVID, but they were already dealing with the administration. But anyways, yeah, it was really interesting. I come from the humanities and the social studies, like media studies, which is kind of, but it was really incredible for me to see how much these same interventions were really relevant across the board. Because at the end of the day, if you need to put together your research in written form and you never are taught, and it was worse for them, right? So you guys in the exact sciences are sometimes in worse predicament, because it's like assumed you were somehow supposed to know how to get up and do that.
Yeah, exactly. And so my background's mechanical engineering, but my doctoral program is in psychology, in general psychology. And so I'm looking to see why women engineers leave. And it's very similar as to like just this whole writing process of like the shaming. And I'm like, yeah, I've never been an engineer before. I didn't grow up with my dad being a mechanic or anything. And I want to learn, but you're making it really hard for me to learn. Like, and I want to write, but you're making it really hard for me to write. And so I'm like, I can deal with the criticism, but I'm like, you're not giving me any direction on how to correct or how to be an academic writer that you want me to. I know that I'm already the shitty type of academic writer that you've well pointed out that I can't do it, but help me do it. Like,
I'm going to stop you right there. Yael knows what I'm about to do. What are we doing? No, you're not. Change that story. You're not a shitty academic writer. This is a shitty academic feedback giver. So see, I just caught you, and I know I'm using you, I'm putting you on the spot, but I caught you being complicit with that. See? And this is a fine little thing, and it's in conversation, in passing, but pay attention to that, because we buy into these stories that are bad stories.
And I don't think I'm that bad, to be honest. I just think like maybe you just need to feel better about yourself being amazing. I don't know. I don't know why you give not you, but like
advice on that. Here's my advice on that. It's in every book about writing that you will pick up. So, it might sound really new for academic writers, but it's really kind of cliche to say. You have to be willing to write a really horrible, shitty first couple of drafts. 10, depending on your process, it could be up to however many, right? Because until you write it bad, you can't improve it and make it good. Julia Cameron says something that I have written right here above my desk, so I'm going to do this so I can read it. She says this: most of us are really willing only to write well, and this is why the act of writing strains us. We are trying to do two jobs at once, to communicate to people and at the same time impress them, right?
Yeah.
So problem with that, and so I'm redirecting it to the kind of work I do, is that when you if you're willing to accept that writing is a process, then the process has stages. And I will say another thing: each project has different process and different stages. So you as a writer, you need to learn what your stages are. What do you need to do? And you're not just a writer, you're a researcher and a writer, right? So it's such a delicate thing. And if somebody from the outside comes in and all they have is a hammer, sometimes we need a feather, so all you get is like, you just get violence. And sometimes you need support, and sometimes you need encouragement, and sometimes you need the right kind of question. I had a professor that was really checked out, but he was really wonderful, because every now and again you can get him in his office and he will just listen to you, and he will not say much, but he will say, there will always be this one sentence that really was this nugget of gold that I could go home and rethink. And of course, he did not get tenure at University of Texas. But, and this is why he was stressed and checked out. But still, he didn't become mean. He didn't become lazy about the advice he gave. He maybe was not available, but when he was available, he just was really present and would give you a question or a statement restating what you just said. Or, he would be like, are you saying nah, 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 nah? And then it might have been totally wrong, but that was such a gift, because I'd be like, oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. All right, if it's coming across like I'm saying this, then I would go home and write and be unblocked, because this person fucking listened. Sorry, there's children. He just listened. Okay, so yeah, go back to that like harsh criticism thing. Oh, go ahead.
What I guess I don't understand is these advisors. So I'm a doctoral student going through the whole thing. They know my background. Why don't they understand that I'm not going to be putting out these perfect papers? Like, I know, I understand I'm not going to be putting out these perfect papers. It seems like they are losing that point, and I don't understand. I don't understand that at all.
Let me explain to you. You know, they're doing this to their own colleagues. You know, I was that, you know what I mean? It's not, I'm trying not to be too jaded against academia because, you know, I was an advisor. I wasn't like that. Some people are not going to be like that. But a lot of the time, what I'm saying, it's not you, it's them. There is, when this becomes a job, you are hurried, you are stressed. Whenever you come to a faculty meeting, they tell you they want you to do more service and that you're not publishing enough and that you're a loser, right?
Okay.
And so, right? So they themselves are in that place. When they are giving you harshness, it's what they know to give to themselves a lot of the time, you know? So that's what I think is happening. And this is goes back to the point I made earlier on about, you know, even the best advisors, if they didn't know to teach themselves how to write. My advisor, who was a fantastic writer, his advice to me was like, never read what you've published. I never go back and read it. I thought that was horrible. Associated, it's like, you know, you're disassociating from it. Well, it's trauma, right? It was a traumatic event for me to publish it, and now it's in the world, and I know it's not perfect, so I just don't read it. That's a wounded advice.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm so sorry this is happening to you, and I'm sorry to tell you that you really are not, it's not about you, it's about them. So Justin is writing, I wonder if part of it is also, hang on, it went away. So Justin, why don't you jump and say what you were writing?
I was just wondering, I've done a lot of editing, and I know from personal experience that, I mean, I'm always very careful not to like step over that boundary where I'm just kind of complaining at the writer for having written something, which is absurd, right? Like, I'm reading it, they've invited me to read it. I want to try to meet that work where it is. And I wonder if part of the issue is that people who recognize shortcomings in an essay but can't articulate those shortcomings might actually be settling for, well, I don't like this, I don't like this. And so they hone in and find all the things they can articulate, because the bigger thing, which is what are the goals of your essay and how can I help you reach those, is kind of lost on them. And that's been my experience, both as like an editor, when I get in those moments where I'm like, I'm not sure what is wrong. Something is off about this essay, but I don't quite know what it is. But also,
I want to jump in, Justin, because you really are saying something really important. And I will say it in a more blunt way. It's hard work. And since they're not being paid, even your advisor, their salary doesn't change. They might be punished by more undergraduate teaching if they don't have enough advisees. But once you said, I will be your advisee, right? It's just another thing that they have to deal with in their week. And so reading the work and truly understanding how to, what's there and where it needs to go, it's very generous. I'm not saying they have to be able to do that every time, but it's definitely, if to begin with, they don't know how to do it for themselves. And Justin, I love what you were saying. You were so thoughtful about it, right? I'm trying to just, you know, articulate. It's hard work. And you know, the question is whether or not your advisor is willing and able, and it could be two different things, because they might be willing and not able, or able and not willing. Are they willing and able to do the fucking work? Sorry, kids. I keep forgetting you are holding a baby. To do the work. And that work is hard work. And in a perfect world, right, the advisor just has all the time in the world to really give you to actually do the work. And so many times the problem is that the intentions might be good, but either there's not enough time or energy, you know, or there's just this, not the awareness that the work means. You read the thing, you see, you know, I would get that chapter 4 from my student. You know, I loved getting the shitty, horrible, terrible, you know, that's when I knew the dissertation was coming along. I would get a chapter and I would read it and nothing flows together, and I would go, okay, let's have a meeting. And in that meeting, I would say, I see 5 chapters in here, and let me tell you, okay, so this piece can go there, and this piece can go there, and this might go, you know. So let me also tell you, this can create anxiety for the advisee because, whoa, I thought I was giving you a chapter. So that was a hard day at work for me. If I would take because I would do 3 hours for that. I would be, here you go, 3 hours, and we will sit together and I would turn apart. And my advisor did that for me as well. So that's why, I need to do that. But after that, usually that person goes away and 3 months later, he comes back with, a much more organized draft where this one chapter became the beginning of 3 chapters, right? It's hard work, and we have a culture of harried, underpaid, overworked people who are trying to pretend like they're doing more work than they really are so that their colleagues would think that they're okay, and all of that stuff. So again, not to go too much into this, but I remember being a student and not understanding this and thinking that a professor just exists to really provide me with really great yes, Yael, please jump in, because I see you're saying some smart things here.
Oh, no, I mean, mostly just saying that Justin was saying smart things. But I think I maybe said this in the course too, but I think, oh no, now what was I going to say?
About advisors or advisees?
No, just that nope, I need to remember it. So I'll think about it, mute myself and come back.
So we can go back to Justin because I don't think he finished making his point.
I think I did. I don't remember.
Oh, okay, good. Or so just say hi and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm Justin. I did an MFA in creative writing, and now I am in a PhD program, and I'm actually on fellowship. So the only thing I have to worry about for the year is writing this dissertation. And my plan was to have the first chapter finished in a couple months, and we're now 6 months in, and I'm still working on that first chapter. I wrote a whole bunch on it. Kind of finding my way through, and then took a step back over the last month and just read some things and focused most on reading. And now I'm returning to the essay, and I'm feeling excited and hopeful, but also a little nervous because I know how much time I spent writing and how little coherence came of that writing. So just hoping that I can actually find some order. And really, actually today I told someone, it feels like I'm writing 5 chapters at once. So, Sharon, you saying, chapters here. I know that part of it is figuring out what's essential to this and what can go in another chapter, but easier said than done.
And another thing is, so you're saying you have a background in writing. So you at least probably know that writing is a practice, that it has stages, that that you need tools. And one of your tools is your own psyche. You need to be mindful about what you are bringing, the traumas, the anxiety. I call it the reverse magnet thing. Like when you come to your desk or your computer and you feel this repulsion, there is something going on that you need to address. So at least hopefully you have all of that down. But what I probably assume you don't have, or I'm wondering how much you have training in, is a good education about the moving parts of a research project. It's so simple, but hard to do. And this is something that, if I may say so myself, and Yael might be able to say, I am so good at doing that, at giving you that simple formula of, and I'm going to give you the quick one right now because it's that quick, because formulas are useful because they're quick. Now, Yael can tell you, we can then spend 3 weeks of 3-hour sessions working on it. But basically, the formula for a research paper is very different from anything that you might have written in creative, any kind of creative writing. It's not about, showing versus telling and, writing a scene or telling. It's just so different. But I have a formula. So you ready? I'm going to give, this is a freebie. It goes something like that. All right. What is your topic? Now, topic, as I always say, is not something God made on day 8. Your topic is an original new contribution. So actually say what your topic is, right? I was a global media scholar. My topic was not global media, right? That's too general. So it takes a long time for you to actually articulate what your topic is. All right, but that's just step 1. Step 2, what are you asking about your topic? Now, we call these research questions, but I have, and here you go, I'm giving you another freebie. Research questions are really tricky for people. And the reason they're tricky is that we think we need to have them before we do the research. But in fact, research questions are a rhetorical tool we extrapolate from having done and finished the research. And how do we finish the research? We write the goddamn thing. So I'll give you a really easy example from like a first year, maybe, you know, undergrad paper, right? You send them to study, I don't know, the stereotype of the, find a stereotype, and somebody goes like, I want to write about the stereotype of the angry Black woman, okay? I taught in downtown Atlanta, first generation college goers. I read a lot about Atlanta housewives, okay? So, which I also watch. So as they research it, they might come up with like 3 discourses that historically shape that stereotype. At the end of all of that, they can say the research question is, what are the 3 discourses that historically shaped this thing, right? Now I'm giving you a simple example, but this works in all levels. You don't know how to articulate a really complex, nuanced research question until you've done the research. So, you know, we start with a generic question, and I give people the generic question of what is the significance of all this, right? Here's my topic, and what is the significance of all this, right? But you need to understand that you will be developing the research question into something that you can convey to a reader early on in a clear way, only through actually writing the goddamn thing and then going back and rewriting the introduction, right? So this was just step 2, right? So 1, what is your topic? 2, what are you asking about your topic? Stage 3 is, I call it methods, but it can be confusing. It's basically the following question. What are you going to do in order to answer the questions you asked about your topic? So you see, it's like a Russian doll, right? You have a topic, you're asking about it. What are you going to do? So for me, it's not just the research methods. Oh, I'm going to be in the archive, or I'm going to go on the set of Israeli Idol show, which I did, right? Israeli Idol-ish show they never paid, which is part of what is to be Israeli, is to take the format and not pay, and then reformat and sell it. Anyways, right? I'm going to do archive work. I'm going to go to the lab if you're an engineer, right? I'm going to do this, and that. So that's methods, but it's also, I'm going to read the literature. What you said before, I read stuff, I wrote, I'm going to read the literature. I'm going to understand the conversation I'm entering. I'm going to bring together these conversations around my topic and show you what is still missing, and why what I'm going to do in terms of my original research is going to help answer the questions I asked about my topic. So what I like to do with this little intervention is, when you get stuck in an academic paper, I send you to do this as a bullet point. So this could be helpful from the very inception, when you're trying to still incubate a project, to write, okay, here's my topic, here's what I'm asking, here's what I'm going to do to answer, or I have done to answer this. But it can also help you in revisions, all the way, like when you have, and Justin, I want to say something about what you said. You talked about the chaos. Please know that you can never have an organized, beautiful last draft without going through the chaos. The ancient book of changes, the Chinese book, talks about weaving order out of confusion. That's my best metaphor for academic writing. You know, every kind of writing. But I gotta tell you, when I'm writing nonfiction, it's not as disorganized. Even if it's memoir and it's my childhood memories, right? It comes out kind of like, let me tell you a story, and this, you know, happened, and this, I felt this, and then it reminded me, you know, when I was walking down the street with my own child, I was thrown back because I smelled the citrus. Like, there are more organic, for me, it's a lot more organic to find a structure in creative writing than this thing with academic writing, when you really, because you're putting together an argument, and you're putting together an original argument within the confines of a discipline and a field and everything that came before you. And you can, the final product can have too much of what came before you or too little of what came before. It's just a lot of conventions that are held by the field that we're all supposed to somehow, just by, oh, somebody's trying to come in and I didn't see. All right, hopefully. Oh, Miriam is coming back. All right, so, and they don't teach us this convention. So, you know, Justin, I wonder, when you were learning creative writing. You know, you had probably classes where you were spending a lot of time talking about the convention, the narrative conventions of a specific genre. How many of you had any kind of class that talked about the structural, poetic conventions and formulas and genre of academic writing? I had zero. I taught a bunch, but I had zero, right? Zero, right? So why? You know, I don't know, because I need to do something after I left academia. I guess that's why the gap is here. So I'm all too eager to feel it, because honestly, if you guys went through what I went through and decided to spend the years I spent researching it, you can find out. You know, this is not, I mean, it's not rocket science, it is science, because we're talking about writing science, but it's possible. It's just, what happens is you come up against this limitation when you're already, like, look, Alina here, well published, right? You know what I mean? And she's really not the only, like, as I told you, I've worked with people in the best university in the world. Like, I had this writer from NYU that was contributing to one of my projects, weaving order out of confusion, weaving confusion out of chaos, sprinkling it with a mess was more like what we were trying to do, to extrapolate something of coherence out of this guy that is tenured at NYU. So, you know what I mean? We don't have good habits. We don't have a curriculum. We are getting so much training for our dissertation or for our, you know, for our PhD on the subject matter of our discipline, but we're not being provided with any kind of mindful curriculum. And again, I might be wrong, there might be exceptions, but I've been working with people from, you know, very, very prestigious rich universities, faculty and grad students, and of course, running the gamut of all, and internationally, and a lot of people. You guys are not alone if you don't feel like you've gotten the training. So this is what my class is trying to do. All right, more comments or questions? I see that, oh, okay, the chat is exploding. Yeah, you found out you remember what you wanted to say? You want to jump in and say it?
Oh, sure. Well, I don't know. Something I discovered about myself at a certain point before I took the course with you, I think maybe I mentioned it in the course, is that sometimes I find feedback from other people is not helpful, because I'm like trying to crack something very specific and I can't figure it out. And I'm like wishing somebody else could crack it for me. You know what I mean? And so it's like I'm, you know, getting feedback back from people, colleagues or whatever. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much for your feedback. And I'm like, this didn't solve the problem. Like sometimes we just need to be able to be patient with the process and like write our way through it and then write our way through it again and like, you know, figure it out. But I think the tools from your course were really helpful.
So thank you so much for this and for saying the tools were helpful. So here's how I would frame this. So I agree. Sometimes feedback specifically can be harmful, especially if the person trying to give the feedback is, you know, not very good at giving feedback, or they're trying to show you that they're giving you feedback because they want feedback on their stuff, but they're just, you know, hurried and they're not, you know. I had people like that come in and get feedback from me, which Yael can tell you, you know, it's going to be like, wham, bam, bam, you go finish the thing. And then when it gets to me, it's like, oh, this is just a mess. I don't know what's going on here. I'm like, well, yours was a mess. I gave you feedback. So sometimes what you need is not even necessarily specific feedback like that, but you need that encouragement or that hand holding or holding a compassionate space. It doesn't even need to be an academic writer or a writer at all. It could be just somebody to remind you that you have inner self-worth intrinsically. That, I mean, I think a lot of, so were you waiting? Was the bingo waiting for the self-worth? When I first mentioned self-worth, that's a big one for me. Listen, what academia does to a lot of academic writers is convince us that we always have to do one more thing to prove our worth, right? Get this degree, and then this degree, and then the job, and then tenure. It's this endless maze where you're supposed to run. And the way they take your power away from you is by convincing you that you need to do this to prove that you are worthy. What if we kind of shift the paradigm? to the radical notion that you are already worthy, that you already have inner worth. Look at me, I was denied tenure. Will you tell me that I'm worthless? I mean, you could, it's not gonna convince me. At some point, I refuse to play the game where I give my power away to academia's, structures of validation or lack thereof to determine whether or not I am worthy. What could be a good substitute to that external running after, the awards and the grants and the jobs and the publication in the best journal? To me, what I found that it was was I able to contribute what I'm here to contribute? Was I able to be a good mom, to be present to my kids, or I'm running around like a crazy person that is so depressed and stressed all the time that I can't even do that, right, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it was a long process of kind of like, I'm thinking of my heart, and it's as if there's like throng of like thorns that are, I had to kind of unhook the thorns of this disease, of the pain that comes from constantly giving my power away to, if I get this published and if I do this. The problem with that was, while it motivated me early on to try to accomplish, at some point, it becomes empty. It's an empty premise. So when you get that publication and you're still running, and you get that degree and you're still running, you get that job and now you have to prove for tenure and and you're always going to have some shitty colleague or somebody coming for you that's gonna say that you're not worthy and we need to get rid of you. I mean, again, I will say it shamelessly, I was an incredible global media scholar. I won awards. Everybody in my world knows my work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I had departmental politics in a program that was kind of torn between media people and film people. And the film people were always going to not vote for me, right? Now, am I going to let a bunch of anal shit people, determine my worth for me? I decided no. I'm not putting a binary here where you either can have your self-worth or have tenure. For me, that played out in that way. But I really think the sooner you start residing in your own self-worth, the sooner you will see that people are also responding to that. If you don't let other people determine your worth. But beyond that, it's not about the other people. Here's what I want to say about this. When you are chasing after the external validation for your own self-worth, what ends up happening is that you lose the joy of expressing your unique contribution, right? You didn't take the time to get a PhD or be in this profession, right? Because this was the most lucrative, most best job you could get. You could make a lot more money doing other jobs, right? You are here because you have something to contribute, that you're passionate about, that you want to contribute, that a unique contribution, that's your voice, that's your role in the world, that only you as a once in a lifetime cosmic event can give. Nobody else can write the work that you will write. This is what this should be about. Writing your work should be, or voicing your contribution should be in the driver's seat, not proving your worth to all those external mechanisms of validating or rejecting that academia built. There's like a situation here where, the means to the end kind of flipped, right? And it became all that we are about. We are like running the maze. All right, so that's my spiel. Let me see if somebody Alina had to go. Let me see if there were, Yael was, all right, so does anybody else want to ask a question or ask about the class or anything about the syllabus or anything? Well, I wanted to also I don't know how long, we've been going at it for long, but if you guys are interested, I wanted to share a little bit from behind the paid wall from the class, just so guys can see and again, Yael, this is gonna look familiar to you. So I'm gonna just go into the PowerPoint for one of the classes. Let me see. Yeah, let's do this one. So this is just for example, this is from the class about time. Hang on, let me start the PowerPoint. So if everybody can see the PowerPoint presentation, why won't it? Oh, there you go. So the reason I'm showing you, so what we're going to do, I want to explain the little difference from the class that Yael took. So with Yael and her group, we did like 3-hour-long Zoom calls, which were hard on everybody. And it's kind of like we say in Hebrew, like the cow wants to give milk more than the calf wants to drink. Sometimes I felt like it was this, but I do think that this was the reason why so many of the people who took the class were able to successfully unblock. So, you know, there's this. But so one change I've made is that this time I'm going to either pre-record or do live, but I'm going to limit the presentation time to 25 to maybe 35 minutes of content. And so this would be available in the group on Saturday. And we were not starting Saturday, we're starting Sunday. So Sundays we're gonna have workshops. So the first class that we're gonna have is gonna be the workshop where we just introduce each other. And then the next Saturday, probably earlier than that, but the first class would be available and homework and all of the stuff that, you know, and it would be a PowerPoint presentation, 25 to 35 minutes of me going through the PowerPoint, either recorded live or pre-recorded. And then you have a whole week to kind of work with it. And then Sunday, we meet for a 1-hour Zoom talk, 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and 15, where we workshop. Now, another thing that I would be encouraging everybody to do is to post their responses and stuff like that on the Facebook group and have conversations. So by the time we get to the workshop, people know each other's work. So I'm giving you here an example of the section that I dedicate to time, planning, scheduling, and I say befriending time, like making time your friend and not your enemy, how to deal with time. So for example, right, we always kind of start with the emotional pitfalls that most people are going to deal with. So I start with this idea that you don't want to fight again. So this would be the content that would be available. Don't fight against correct timing. Right, so we will talk about how we tend to try to control rather than understand timing. So it could be pretty profound philosophical stuff, but it usually has really quick psychological benefits. When you take the time to think, am I willing to kind of lurk and ambush and find what the right timing looks like in my life? Or am I trying to control what the right timing looks like in my life? So it can be an enormously useful and provocative thing for people to start exploring. So then with that kind of stuff, I will be inviting you guys to do journaling and thinking, or sometimes, you know, whatever works for you. It could be taking a walk and thinking about it and just really getting into what, you know, what comes up for you around this from your childhood. What did you see your parents doing? You know, so these are really deep things, because these are, honestly, these are the things that get you in trouble when you're writing. All right, so then we talk about, for example, the fact that I propose that creative expression is independent of willpower and has its own unique timing that cannot be controlled. So, you know, we would go and talk, you know, about these kind of things. And then, for example, we move to understanding the stages of the writing process. Again, I'm not doing the class, I'm just showing you how the class progresses. So for example, this is a really good thing that comes from this book on being stuck, Lorraine Herring, and she talks about the creative process, and she uses like this agricultural metaphor for the different stages that are involved in the creative process, right? So even before planting, we should talk about, you know, you need to sometimes let the ground just rest. You know, you need to let the earth rest, and you need to maybe compost the earth, etc. You need to prepare the earth, you know, and then you need to plant. And you need, there is time to gather. We say in the I Ching, I'll stop here for a minute. We say the ancient Chinese book of Chinese, the I Ching talks about, don't go out with your plow when the field is muddy. If the field is muddy and you're out there with your plow, you're just gonna undo the progress you've made. So that would be, you know, again, the first kind of thing that we would always look at would be these, this one is actually going from the more emotional, cognitive pitfalls into practical interventions that you can do. So what I did with this one, as you can see, I am taking it's a tiny reading that you guys would, that the students would read. And then I developed what would all of these stages look like in an academic project, right? So for example, planting could be the field work or your research, or maybe you're doing interviews or working the literature, right? What does gathering look like? You know, using the same, these guys, to start creating project files, notes, data sheets, etc. Harvesting would be, sorting would be planning, outlining, brainstorming. And there is this one that it's stillness, pausing. Sometimes you need to take a break for all of this to integrate, you know, right brain, left brain, kind of do a puzzle, keep your brain busy while you are working. It counts. You take time and you schedule, and that's the time that you are writing, and you have a babysitter or whatever, but you are reading a memoir. Like for me, I read a memoir because I'm writing a memoir, or I do a puzzle and I let everything kind of percolate, okay? And that counts as work. This is something that academic writers would run for the hills when they hear, what? Yes. And then, you know, there's deepening. So there's, you know, or harvesting can also be drafting and revising. Like, so here's what I want to show, stop here and just emphasize for you. What you are willing to count as writing is one out of many stages. Like this fingers flipping on keyboard is, I think, less than 10% of the time that is, you know, is really dedicated to writing. But so often in academia, we are not willing to count those other stages as work. So while it's maddening for me to see. So you're doing the right thing by reading more or going like, but instead of just legitimizing your own process to yourself and saying, I've worked because I did this, you know, inherently, so many times I feel like people know exactly what they need to do. Sorry, your phone is dying. We're about to finish anyways, right? So we know what needs, and this will be, I'll put this on the group. So we know what needs to be done, and we stand in our own way of doing the right thing because we have this stereotype that we need to finish, but we're not there. There are other elements of the process, other stages, legitimate stages that we are trying to skip. And part of this is the bad advising we get. If the advisor doesn't tell you, yeah, go back and read, or yeah, you know, it's okay to still be thinking about your research or your theoretical framework or blah, whatever it is. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, when I work with academic writers, all I need to do is show them that they're doing the right thing, but they don't know. And why does that happen? Because we give our power away. Once you start giving your power away in the proving race, you get disconnected from your inner knowing, not because you don't know, but because you don't trust yourself. So you're getting the sense of how I work with academics and other writers, right? This is all about rediscovering your own mastery. Now, listen, this does not mean you cannot get better at craft elements, and we do plenty of that. So the schedule goes from, I'll do this because, again, this is going, oops, sorry, where did I go? I want to share, this is going on the group later, so I want this to have that component. So, and I know you guys are being very patient. I want to show you the syllabus. Now, this is from the older, I didn't cut it down to 10 parts. It's still 6 parts, right? So it goes from writing this process, you know, just this idea that educating people about the fact that writing is a process, right? You shift the perspective from product to process orientation, understand the fundamental elements of a writing practice, learn and practice key tools for developing a regular successful writing practice. Then the second unit, which again, I think this one would be 2 or 3, dealing with avoidance, resistance, and blocks. It's a big one. It's a huge one. And most of the literature that I read is about that probably, right? So from understanding the brain science and psychology of avoidance, all the way to exploring your own blocks, understanding writer's block as a range of phenomenon. I was super blocked, but I never faced an empty page. My block is a block of completion where I write and write and write millions of words, but it's like in circles and it's confusing and I get turned around in it. And so many people have so many different blocked behaviors. So we're gonna, you know, that's a big one. Then we go into our writer's time, which is a really fantastic. So we go from that emotional into the more practical, but you'll see that talking about time brings together both, because our ideas about time and how to manage our time are so fraught with emotional pitfalls and right. So we talk about understanding how to approach scheduling, writing, understanding your own relationship with time, and back to the idea that your idea of time and how you work with time is different from, like, this is why I don't like, or I do like, but I qualify this book. The Clockwork Muse would be great if it was about teaching how this guy writes. It's gonna work for some people. It's not gonna work for other people, right? So you need to understand the moving parts, but then you have to tailor for yourself what would work for you. And let me tell you another thing. Once you get it, it's gonna change again, and that's okay, because this is an ongoing process. So after time, we talk about hacking the research paper book formula. So we funnel into what you originally think you want to know when you take a class about writing, the craft. And then we go more into craft practice, style, and structure, where we talk about, again, and bringing a wealth of work from people who write about narrative and also academic style, etc. And bring it together around what you need to develop and know and understand and practice for your craft and your style for academic writing. And then finally, we go into finishing school. So this brings together a lot of the above, like how do you take all of that and you do it over time and you understand the stages and you take a draft from A to Z, right? You understand the process of drafting, revising, getting and then publishing. All right, so again, this is a 6-week schedule, but this is going to become 10 weeks because, again, I saw that I was really oppressing my students when I try to cram all of this into 6 weeks. So hopefully it's going to be more manageable over a longer period of time with shorter classes and more time for you in between to, kind of process. All right, so I really enjoyed talking with you guys today. I'm happy to take more questions or comments. I am here. This is going to go on the group as well. I set aside the next couple of weeks until the class starts to, marketing this and answering questions and et cetera, and also building, retweaking the syllabus. But this is what I do all day. I work with a lot of academic writers and other kind of writers and filmmakers and, a lot of creative types. And I really enjoy helping people realign with their creative flow, reminding them to move from that place that got them to pursue this work to begin with. You didn't do this to prove your worth to somebody else. And if you did, and you might have, it was already overriding something internal that you wanted to do. Because, again, if you got stuck in academia this long, there is something that you want to voice. That's your unique, original contribution that only you can do. And you're letting this proving game hijack your process. And so by learning about that process, and it takes time to rewire your brain. And again, some of you, I think it's such a good, Felicia, it's so good to see you with the baby, because this is such a live demonstration of why this is so hard. And you so remind me of me while, I was doing this, right? And it's just, if you don't have in place this understanding that writing is a process, that it has stages, that you don't suck. You don't inherently suck. You just don't, but that you might gain mastery over this process if you name it and you acknowledge it and you deal with the inner, tender, creative part of you that's very young, that gets triggered by your bad habits of coming to your desk and already be so harsh on yourself. And you take some time to really think about the question of motivation. We do a lot of that. What is this idea that motivation can only come from discipline? And it actually always comes from aligning with something that wants to come from inside, right? That you, or you want to channel it, there's different metaphors for that. And you learn how to not get not panic, not get anxious and afraid and just all tied up in knots every time it gets hard, because it's gonna get hard. So, you know, what I've done with myself, I liberated myself. I'm such a happier writer. And it's true that I no longer, well, almost, I no longer write scholarship, but I never say never. I keep being asked and invited. So one of those days, some people will come up where I say, okay, but I'm writing this project, and I'm writing a memoir, and I'm writing, you know, lots of different stuff. And the best thing about it is that I never force myself anymore. There's no need. I'm at my desk, and what comes is welcome. And when I observe that the process is culminating towards something that I want to put out in the world, the energy is there for the next stage, which is wrapping it up and sending it. And it's wonderful and beautiful, and it's possible. It's really about surrendering to what your process is. You already have a process. You just are fighting it because you have a stereotype of what it needs to be or how it needs to look. Now, I'm not gonna lie, life can be hard. You have a baby, it's not gonna be the easiest years of writing. You know, it's just, that's just the truth, right? But I will say this, COVID happened. I'm a person who was addicted to my 8 hours alone at home with kids that are older and are at school and after curriculum. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming faster than you think, Felicia. All right, but here we are. Everything I had was predicated on that. And so now that's taken away. And now what? I call that move the stop, drop, and roll, which is how we teach children in the United States about dealing with fire, right? You got to stop and go like, oh shit, I'm on fire. You got to name that in order for you to stop and then roll. So, you know, when that happened and everybody's in the house together, I immediately took a vacation, a break. I was like, right? Because that's part of my process. I knew the process I had in place was not going to be the process that's going to carry me through this. So I could butt my head against the wall to try to, I don't know what, tell them just kids don't talk to me for 8 hours. It's not gonna, right? So instead, what I've learned is to bend with grace, you know, like the tree that bends in the wind and does not break because it's willing to bend with grace. So I am the most prolific I've ever been, and I'm more than happy to invite more people into this. And this is not about you. I mean, Megan, you already signed up for the class. Felicia, this is not about you necessarily taking the class right now. This is my mission that I'm excited. Again, this is my contribution, my unique original contribution that I'm excited about sharing with the world. And what I see is that when you are on that trajectory, it becomes practical. It becomes, I am making a living doing this now, you know. And if you would have told me back in the time when I was this harried academic nursing mom of 2, right? How it's going to end, my mind couldn't, I would be shocked and appalled, right? No, my mind thought there was this one way that I need to be in order for me to feel happy and fulfilled and successful. Little did it know, all right? So sometimes you just have to follow what the process is that's your...
So I do have a question.
Yes.
Since it's COVID and I'm operating at 40%, taking a 10-week course sounds a little bit daunting to me. Just because question. I'm like, I don't.
So let me.
I don't know how much more I can.
Right.
And I guess I was just wondering if your element. Do you offer like just the elements 1 week, like tailored kind of thing?
So here's how I would answer this. I think that for the price of the course, and especially the early bird special that we're still having, and even just getting the 10 recordings of the course to work through in your pace, because you're getting the Facebook group with all the recordings and with the workshop recordings. Now you can attend the workshops if you did the work before or if you didn't. You saw how much you got from just this, right? So the workshop, right? So what I saw with the people that took the class over the summer is that people worked on the course in different paces, right? So everything is recorded and is available in the group. The group, all of the information is yours forever and ever. It's a lot of readings. It's all of, extracts made from all of these books. By the way, I made my kids learned how to scan things on my phone. So I have TAs. Older kids, you can put them to work. Not great PDFs, but hey, what are you going to do? So,
Yeah.
well, I remake the ones that are not good. But anyway, but honestly, I really am trying to make this as manageable as possible, because you can always find once a week, 25 minutes to watch a video, right? And then if you can just commit to attending now, yeah, you can get a lot of it if you actually practice all. But don't forget, you're not writing for us your actual product that's an academic product. What you do for the class is a lot of journaling and exercises and writing prompts. Now you're invited, if you are working on your dissertation, I bet you the week where it's asking you this really simple thing, what is your topic? What are your questions about your topic? This could be really helpful, but it's really something that is meant to give you a training as a writer, so that you can start building that mindfulness about your writing practice. And so I think it's a chicken and an egg. I think the earlier, so what I mean by that is so many times, clients are reaching me when they're like, the deadline is here and they're so blocked, and now there's no time to address all of this. But the present is always the best time to address this. And so I really try to make it so manageable by making it shorter. I know it's a Zoom world, and like even this, I'm sure exhausted everybody, right? And I know I'm exhausted, although I'm excited about it. But so this is why I try to just make it, there's 25 minutes of content. It's instead of like watching, I don't know, your Colbert show or whatever it's called now, right? Once a week, you can, and whether or not you can do all the readings and do all the prompts. I mean, I'm taking a class right now with creative nonfiction. Some weeks I submit, it's like you're supposed to submit, you can submit 300 words a day and then 1,000 words on Friday. Some weeks I don't submit any of this and I just go through the PowerPoint and, but it keeps me in the loop of my writing. So again, this was the long answer, but the short answer is like, I don't think that it's a problem, especially since you can later not only watch the 25-minute presentations and you have the PowerPoint as well, you can also watch the workshop. Even if you didn't make it to the workshop, you can watch the workshop that happened. But I would recommend coming to the workshop, whether or not you had time to, because in the workshop, I'm a relentless teacher. I will quickly recap and I will get you caught up on what we went through. And again, you're not learning engineering or deep theoretical stuff from you are invited to become mindful about yourself as a writer. So I understand, I hear you. I'll tell you another thing too. If there is no more bang for your buck working with me, because what you pay for this class is what what I usually take to assess a person. Like $500 is what it takes me to get through like the big first one-on-one coaching call and maybe 2 more 30-minute calls. So when you're in the class, you get a lot of bang for your buck, because you get a lot of personal coaching from me because you're there. And you get all the knowledge. And don't forget, it's going to then be there for you to also, when you're a teacher and you teach other people to write. So it's a curriculum that you're getting that stays with you, and you always have that content for you. So that's my answer for that. But I'm really glad you asked that, because I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves this question.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Worth it. And again, and hopefully you can work at it. And again, as I said, I'm taking another class, and today, for example, I went through 2 of her classes. It's a class for writing memoir. I'm behind like 3 weeks. So today I had a little bit more time in the morning. So I just went through these 2 classes and got really inspired and wrote a lot instead of preparing for this, which I didn't need to, because I know what I'm doing. Hopefully
I do need to head off, but I appreciate
Yes, me too.
great information. So I thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And listen, if you want to take it right now, great. And if you don't, that's also absolutely fine. There will be more of these. And if you want to take it and you can afford it, talk to me, because especially if, you're underemployed or, there's going to be enough, hopefully, people who are taking this and are paying with their university research money, right? Especially with the no conferences, right? And I'm pointing at Megan because I think that was some of the calculus that happened there. And the more I have, the more I can offer unemployed or underemployed or precariously employed or graduate students. I like to offer scholarships. So just be in touch.
Excellent.
And
Okay.
good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see
Thank
you.
you for everybody that stayed online or offline, that stayed all the way through, because this was a lot. And thank you so much. And thank you for Megan for already registering for the class. And I look forward to seeing more of you. I'll stop recording maybe. Okay, so bye everybody.